Hey there, this is Brooke, one of the admission counselors here at the Viterbi School of Engineering and Computer Science. I definitely don't want to keep you waiting, but I wanted to hop on here really quickly and remind you about some exciting events that we have coming up for anyone interested in our undergraduate programs. We have on-campus events, virtual events, and we are even traveling to cities near you. We want to meet you, so write this down, viterbi.link/events. That's viterbi.link/events, EVENTS, for all of the events that we have coming up. Now let's get that podcast started.
This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And I'm your other co-host, Safi Patel. I'm a senior in computer science and doing my progressive degree in engineering management. And today we have another lovely guest star with us. Ava, would you like... Oh.
Who's that? Who's over there?
Hi, everyone. My name's Ava. I'm a senior studying biomedical engineering. I'm from Horsham, Pennsylvania. It's a town right outside of Philadelphia. And on campus, I'm involved in some engineering works, like associated students of biomedical engineering, but I'm also pursuing a cinematic arts minor, and I dabble in dance. I'm on a few dance teams. One is Breakthrough Hip Hop, and another is Trojan Tap Troupe.
I think being a part of two different dance teams at USC is not dabbling in dance. I think you're actually a dancer. I think that you should not be so... You should be a little more proud of those accomplishments, not just like, oh, I dabble in dance.
Okay, true. That is true, because I do spend...
Can you tell us what the difference is in the two? What's the difference in the two different dance teams?
Yeah, so Breakthrough Hip Hop is more hip hop focused, and we put on a showcase every single semester, which is always super fun. And we'll have our set pieces, but then we also give opportunities for other members to choreograph dances if that's something that they want to do, which I think is really cool. And we'll also invite other dance teams on campus, like there's K-pop dance teams, there's contemporary dance teams, and then we invite them to perform in our showcase as well. So it's really cool because we get to collaborate with other teams. And then Trojan Tap Troupe is more focused on kind of getting better at tap. So we'll invite in choreographers from the LA area to come and teach combos for us. And then we also do perform in other showcases on campus. So last semester, or I believe 2 semesters ago, we performed in the Breakthrough Hip Hop Showcase. So it was so fun because I got to show my Breakthrough Hip Hop friends that I also tap, and they got to meet each other, which was cool.
That's awesome. Way to go. Very cool. And Ava, you said you're a senior, correct?
Yes.
Great. And so as per tradition, anytime we have seniors on, it's an unfair question, but do we know what's happening next year or what you want to do next year as you're wrapping up your last year here at USC?
I think I want to go into industry, so I'm going to be applying for as many jobs as I can. And yeah, hopefully it works out okay.
Sure, yeah, I know. What companies are you looking at right now?
I'm still trying to figure out if I want to go home or not, just because I don't get to spend a lot of time at home. So there's a few biomedical companies out by Philadelphia. One is Merck, which is would be a really great place to work. So hopefully that.
Great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, good luck. I wish you the best of luck with that. And for our hardcore listeners, all 10 of you that are out there, you may remember hearing Ava on our parents' move-in day special, where we did a live assaulting of parents that were there at our event. And Ava was great talking to parents and asking them questions. So it's good to see you again, Ava. Safi, how are you?
I'm good. I've been having a lot of the senior scaries lately, though.
Why?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of...
Well, first define what you mean by senior scaries.
Okay, I've heard it defined different ways. First one, the most common one, is apparently the opposite of senioritis. Senioritis, you're just checked out. Senior scaries is you feel like you have so much to do because it's all the last. So you're
your
I
bucket
do this
list
and this. Yeah.
So that's what's going on right now. I feel like I have like 20 million things to do before I graduate.
Yeah.
And I also just need to focus on recruitment. I've been so like mine is a mixture of senioritis and senior scaries because I'm too lazy to do the things I need to do, but I have so many things to do that I'm overwhelmed.
I get it. I totally get that. That is a feeling I have probably once a week where I'm
Mhm.
like, I am way too busy. There are way too many things to do, and I just then shut down.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I have a random, incredibly productive day where I just
Mhm.
knock like 12 things off my list. I don't know if you guys are like that, but
No,
it's
me
like
too.
spurts and stops and spurts. So well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what advice I would give you, not that you're asking for it, is um, you've gotten this far with a very particular pattern.
Mhm.
Keep on that pattern. And I would say once every 2 weeks or so, do something you've never done before.
See, the thing is, I'm trying to do something I haven't done before, like every 3 days.
No, that's what I'm saying. Slow it down. Slow it down. You have more time than you think.
Yeah.
And be like, you know what? Let's make that this week. Let's make that this week. Let's make it this Wednesday night. Let's go do something on Wednesday night that we haven't done before, just to kind of get it out of our system and see what's happening. And also because some of the things you've never done before, you won't like. Like
That's true.
it won't be as advertised, if that makes any sense. So you want to like not have the high expectations,
Yeah.
right? That it's always going to be amazing. I think just have a little fun, but enjoy the pattern of it. Because the other thing I will tell you is that when you all leave college, the things you'll miss are the thing routine for you. All the things that you're about to do in your life in general, you'll continue to do.
Your audio cut out just a little bit,
Did
just
it? Oh, I'm
slightly.
so sorry.
Yeah, very good.
Hopefully it might have captured it. But I was going to say the things that you miss are going to be the things that are routine to you.
Mm,
Like you're just doing day to day that you don't think about too much. That's what you're going to miss.
yeah.
Not the like random Wednesday night where you explored some part of LA that you've never been to before, because that will be continuously part of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I'm gonna get friends together and be like, we're trying everything, but at a good
Yeah. Totally, totally. So we got an episode here, and I'm sure we got much more things to chit chat about on the back end of this. But Ava, are you bringing us an episode here today? What's this episode all about?
Yes, I am. So basically, I'm going to be interviewing two other Viterbi students who studied abroad. I was lucky enough to study abroad last semester in London at Queen Mary University.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing experience. I genuinely find any excuse I can to talk about it, but I am just so lucky that I got to do it, and I think it really contributed a lot to my education. So I'm going to be interviewing two other students who studied abroad. One is Irith and one is Keyvette, and we're going to be having a discussion about how it was going abroad, going to a new country and living there for months, but also what the education was like, how engineering classes differed from being abroad to being in Viterbi, and kind of what that looked like, what the workload looked like, how we felt it was to manage having all of these new experiences while also still having to go to class and learn, because that is the study portion of study.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah. And then also we're going to be talking about traveling, what it's like to meet people from all over the world and how that contributes to your education as an engineering student. And then what we kind of take forward from that, moving on and coming back to school, and how we can implement the new things that we've learned and how we think it's kind of shaped us in our educational experience. So
Well, that's great. Where did they go?
So Irith studied abroad at the University of Sussex, which is in Brighton. It's in the UK. And then Keyvette studied abroad in Singapore through one of the Viterbi exchange programs.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Um, the only little preface I will give to our listeners is that um, as much as they're going to talk about really cool, unique experiences and study abroad, no matter who you speak to about study abroad programs, you will only ever hear about kind of the tip of the iceberg and opportunities. There are so many ways in which students can study abroad. And even myself, I'm learning about new ways all the time. Um, we have semester exchange programs, which I think is where most high school students come from. They think that's the definition of study abroad, and that's just one way of doing it. There are programs that we run in the Viterbi School. There's programs that run over alternative like spring breaks or winter breaks. We have August programs. We have month of May programs. We have service opportunities. We have study abroad opportunities with student organizations. We have a class that does a lot of cool international opportunities as well. There are so many different ways to engage in international education and international experiences that I just want everybody to recognize. Go to viterbiadmission.usc.edu/abroad to learn a little bit more about the plethora of opportunities that are out there. And so just to head that up as we go into this, and Ava, it's incredibly, I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago, but it's incredibly apropos that we're talking about study abroad and your Queen Mary experience, because in 2 days I'm getting on a plane and going to London. So maybe on the back end of this episode, we will talk a little bit more about the London experience and any recommendations you have for me as I go back there. But with that said, let's get out of the way. Hand it over to Ava to talk a little bit more with her friends about their study abroad experiences.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Hi to all of our regular listeners. I'm super excited because today we're going to be talking about study abroad experiences. I'm here with two other USC Viterbi students who also studied abroad. Do you guys want to introduce yourself? You can do your name, your major, where you studied abroad, and then like what year you studied abroad. So whoever wants to start.
I can go first. Hello, my name is Irith. I'm a current senior studying computer science and computational biology. I studied abroad at the University of Sussex, which is in Brighton in the UK, my spring semester junior year. So this past spring.
Awesome. My name is Keyvette. I am studying biomedical engineering, and currently I am a senior in my last semester, but I studied at the National University of Singapore back in my spring semester of junior year.
And then I'll just reiterate mine again. I'm a senior studying biomedical engineering, and I studied abroad the spring semester of my junior year, so last semester, and I studied abroad at Queen Mary University in London. So first, I think there's this big myth out there that engineering students can't study abroad. I remember talking to a lot of my friends in my engineering classes, and they were like shocked that I was studying abroad. They were like, how are you doing that? How are you fitting that in your schedule? So I just want to ask, when did you guys both start kind of having like the I want to study abroad conversation and then figuring out how to fit it in your schedule, and kind of what did the process look like of getting your study abroad like set up and how that worked?
I think for me, I kind of always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to study abroad. But it was pretty late on that I actually started considering if that was a possibility or not. I think I started looking into the process probably the semester before I went abroad. So pretty much like pretty short timeline. But it was honestly pretty doable. I think, there's definitely that misconception within the engineering school that, there's not that many opportunities just because of our course load. And I think once I actually started looking into the exchange program that I did and like what courses were available, it was pretty doable. But I would say that I probably could have taken more classes or like some like classes that fit a little bit closer to my required courses if I had looked a little bit earlier, but I definitely was surprised to see how many actually were offered at the school that I went to.
So sorry to interrupt your podcast. It's Lisa with a quick invitation for all my people in the Pacific Northwest area. If you're interested in learning more about our engineering and computer science programs, I will be at Discover USC in Seattle on Saturday, September 21st. You can register online at viterbi.link/events. That's Viterbi, VITERBI.link, LINK/events, EVENTS. I hope to see you guys there.
I looked right when I got to USC. Study abroad was one of the things that was on my like bucket list of items to do at college right when I got in. And I talked to my advisor, and they said that the only like major requirements I could complete for computer science were the 3 technical electives. So she just blocked out a semester where I'd theoretically be taking 3 technical electives abroad, and it would just be one less class than the normal 4 course load. So it was pretty easily able to fit in the semester, and I'm able to study abroad, do my major, and do a minor, and still graduate in 4 years with no extra anything, which is really good. But I say if you're thinking about studying abroad, have the conversation with your academic advisor early because they can adjust your course plan as necessary. So if you need to take maybe a class over the summer, then you can fit that in that way. And then for my finding courses process, I'd emailed the people who would organize the Viterbi specific study abroad programs, who said that those programs are slightly more competitive to get into. And then I also heard about through the Dornsife Overseas Studies Office that they also offered programs that are open to Viterbi students. And I emailed them and they said that their programs were way less competitive to get into and that they just encouraged people to go. So I figured that would be like a bigger chance for me to actually get to go abroad. And I had looked through all the university offerings and found the University of Sussex having a lot of computer science classes that could transfer over. So I was able to find 3 courses there so I could take my 3 technical electives abroad. So it actually all worked out really good. And the study abroad department knows of a lot of engineering people that go on their programs. So they have like records of what people have taken. So it was really helpful to see what other people took abroad and where other people went. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. I started I knew I wanted to study abroad, I think, from my freshman year. But then I think sophomore year, second semester, I was like, I really want to see how I can make this work. And basically I just emailed my advisor, same thing, and he sent me a list, a Excel spreadsheet of all of the places that other BME students had studied abroad. And I ended up also going through Dornsife to do mine just because where I was at kind of in my course plan, I was technically a sophomore, but I was more so taking a lot more of the upper division classes. So I think Queen Mary was the only one where I could get kind of the 400 level classes that I would have been taking in my junior year to kind of fit perfectly. So yeah, that's what I did. And then actually the summer before my junior year, I did a study abroad program in Tokyo that was 2 weeks, which was also through Viterbi. And then I came back from that and was like, yeah, I need to go somewhere for a whole semester. I definitely want to study abroad again. I need to make this work. And that's when I kind of figured out exactly the courses that I could take. But yeah, so we talked about how me and Irith both went through Dornsife, and then Keyvette, you went through, it was a Viterbi program, right? Specifically.
Yes, it was the Viterbi International Exchange Program. So I think at the time when I'd applied, it was only either Singapore or Hong Kong. And I think since then they've expanded it now. I think they're doing a lot of other places through that program. But yeah, so during that time, I think for me, deciding between Singapore and Hong Kong was, I think, just solely based on courses, I think, for me, making that decision. I know you guys mentioned that you guys did some tech electives abroad, and I think that's what a lot of people think is the only option for you. But luckily I was, NUS offered some of my major requirements that I was able to take abroad. So I think that's big too, in terms of, feeding into this misconception of you only because at that point I had already fulfilled, I think, 2 of 3 of my tech elective requirements. So I was like, oh, is it even possible? Because I know we had to take 3 courses abroad, but it was super nice that they still, accept that credit from those major courses.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to talk about kind of the cultural adjustment. Did you guys have any culture shocks when you first were moving in? I know I was like, oh my God, I'm in a whole new country right now. I'm gonna live here. And I flew in by myself. My parents didn't come to help me. And so I had landed literally, I think at probably 10 p.m. and it was a Saturday night. And I feel like LA, most people don't really use the metro as kind of consistently. I was used to Ubering around. And I remember landing in Heathrow and being like, I have to figure out how to get to my school right now. And I was like, time to take the tube. And with all of my suitcases and figured that out. And that was definitely a big moment of I'm doing it. Time to get there. So what was that like for you guys? The move in, were there any culture shocks or just things that you noticed right away?
I think for me, I'll say going to the UK is you'll get the least culture shock because first of all, there's a language barrier, which I think if you have a language barrier, that's infinitely much more of a different culture shock. but having everyone speak English, although some of their words and lingo is different, was definitely less of a culture shock. Um, I don't say I was shocked as much by the UK culture. It was more like little things that I would notice that were different in their like academic system or different lingo or their like drinking culture and um yada yada. But I wouldn't say I was shocked. It was more just little small things that I would notice from time to time.
Irith, the one thing that I noticed right away was I remember moving in. I lived in the university housing, so I remember like moving
Yeah.
into my flat, and one of my flatmates, like the way that they kind of greet each other in the UK is like, "Hey, are you all right?" is in the way that we say like, "Hey, what's up?" And so he said
Yeah.
like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Do I like not look all right?" Like that was something that like jumped out at me right away, and it took me so long to realize it's like oh like hey what's up like hey how are you type of thing. I was like
Yeah.
I was literally like what do you mean am I all right like
Yeah, I totally agree. When people said that to me first, I was like, "Yeah, are you all right? Like, are you okay?" And I at one point I just asked my flatmates, like, what am I supposed to say when you say you all right? They're like, "Oh, you could say you all right back, or you could just like nod."
yeah.
It's just like when we say what's up, it's the exact same
Mhm.
equivalent.
And then another one that I thought was so funny was I remember I moved in and then I kind of ordered all of the things that I would need like bedding and like shower stuff. And I was like, my boxes, like I asked my flatmate, um, like, where's like our big trash? And he looked at me like so funny. He was like, trash? Like, what do you mean trash? And then he was like, oh, like rubbish. And that was another one that was just so funny.
For
Yeah.
you guys, how was it like? Because I know in Singapore, like adjusting to like walking on the left.
Oh, yeah.
Because how was that for you guys? Because they do that in the UK as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
took me a second. Um, to like crossing roads was just so different, like even using the crosswalk because I caught myself always like looking in the wrong direction at first to see if cars were coming. So yeah, that was like really interesting actually.
Also with crossing the road too, some of the like pedestrian stoplights would instead of for in the US where they will directly face you on the opposite side of the road, they would be on your side of the road facing like on your left or on your right, and they would be facing like to your left. So you just like turn before crossing to see
Yeah.
if you can go,
Yeah.
which none of us were used to. And I was like, wait, how am I supposed to go? So yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, I
curious
feel like
about what Singapore was like.
yeah, I
That's a
think it's
bigger, I feel like that's a bigger like culture shift than the UK.
yeah, I think for me, I also like went by myself and like moved myself in and stuff. So like I completely like understand your struggle of like, you're trying to figure out the public transportation, which is also like huge in Singapore. And like I think I was a little bit less culture shocked than I thought. I think the eventual culture shock like came like a little bit later once I was like, wait, like I'm actually like in Singapore right now and like kind of coming to terms with that. But I think same thing, like everyone there speaks English. I mean, there's lots of different languages spoken. And it's pretty diverse for like I would say being in Asia, just because there's a huge population of, I think there's like four different national languages. So a lot of different types of people, and like, I think that's something that I was used to, just being in America, but definitely like, I'd say diverse in that sense. So it was just a little bit like getting used to like also the food too. I mean, it was delicious, but I think like after a long period of time, I definitely was like craving American food. And like it's funny because like in Singapore, like all of the like Western food is like super expensive compared to like, like any like local meal will probably be like $4 versus like if I want pasta, it's probably gonna be like $22. So like more similar to like I guess LA prices and like bigger cities in America. But yeah, I think it was also I think at my university I had a lot of friends that came from a lot of different places. And I think that also um just kind of some cultural barriers within that, like of just like in relating, or like some people are like more straightforward than others and cultures. And I feel like sometimes I was like like someone would say something and I'm like, okay, well that's like kind of rude. But then like I would like think about it and like we had those conversations of like, oh, like I didn't mean it like that at all. But like that's just like, the conventions of like how in my culture we like speak to each other or whatnot. So I think also just like getting to know a lot of different types of people and like outside of Singapore as well. But I think like my first big culture shock was, so when I flew to Singapore, I had a 20-hour layover in Tokyo just because I was like, okay, like I knew that was one of the places on my bucket list and I was like, okay, as long as I like get to see it, like that would be amazing. So yeah, I landed and then same situation to you, Ava, where like I had to take the train and I had like my carry-on bag and then I was like, what is going on? And like luckily a lot of things were still written in English. But yeah, I definitely was like had that moment where I was like standing in the station, like where do I like I have to take out money? Like I'm very confused of like how do I pay for this? But yeah, it was definitely like a growing experience and like set me up for like other travel that I did throughout the experience. So
Yeah, I completely like remembering that moment of landing and being like, I gotta take the tube and figure this out right now.
yeah.
Okay, so now I want to kind of talk about classes a little bit. I'm curious if you guys noticed any like big differences in maybe like the subjects or just like the structure of the classes in comparison to your classes at Viterbi.
Yeah. Ava, I don't know how this was for you, but I think a lot of universities in England have their grading system works is a lot of your grade or all of your grade is your final assessment. Um, so there isn't like homework assignments to buffer your grade or anything. I think it's just because the philosophy in England is that the professor's there to teach you the material, and they're often really good professors too. But it's completely your own responsibility to do whatever you need to do well on the final assessment and to prepare yourself for the final assessment. So here they have homework or other assignments to sort of enforce that you're learning along the way. But there, in some classes, I would just have a final essay for the end, and that was 100% of my grade. Or I would have like a final technical report and project, which is just like a very, very, very large assignment with a research report with it. And that would be 80% of my grade. And then I would have two quizzes in the middle that would be 10% each. So it was really different to not have homework. It definitely made the daily grind way less because I would just be sort of reinforcing the material, like taking my lecture notes, doing some of the readings, and we had weekly labs that were not graded and were a lot more experimental, like, oh, try this or try this, instead of passing requirements ABC or test case ABC. So I was really scared that like 80% of my grade would be determined by one thing. But honestly, it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. And it actually ended up being, I thought, way easier than what a USC semester would look like, just because the daily grind was way less, even though in like the last month, I was just working nonstop on my final assessments. But it was definitely an interesting way of learning there, just because there's no homework to reinforce along the way. So it's completely up to you on what you do to reinforce your learning along the way.
Yeah.
And also the grading skill there to compensate for just having one thing at the end determine your whole grade was a 70% or above. For us was an A, and then 60 to 70 was a B, and so on.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah, my classes were pretty similar. I ended up taking two classes in the like general like science school because I was doing a physiology class and then biochemistry, and then I took two of their like senior level engineering, which was like biocompatibility and then cell and tissue mechanics. And I noticed that like the like two science classes were very much like we had a final, we had a midterm, and then biochem, we also had a lab, but it was so interesting to me because I was so used to like if you have a lab class at USC, you're having that lab consistently every single week. But we had one lab the whole semester for like 2 hours instead of like a whole 3 hour chunk. And I thought that was just so like that was just really wild to me. And also all of my classes only being held one time a week. I think one of them had a discussion section, but it wasn't the same way at USC where it's like consistently every week. It was only a few times throughout the semester. So I thought that was so interesting because it really does like kind of force you to learn it on your own. And yeah, I also didn't have like homework a lot. I think I had a few assignments, but definitely nothing compared to like a typical USC week, which is cool because you get more time throughout your actual week to do other things. But then when it gets to the end and you're like, oh, like I'm about to take a final, like I need to actually make sure I know it because you don't have the homework or like the mini assessments to kind of check your learning. You have to do that yourself, which for me was honestly pretty challenging. But I do think with the grading scale, it like evens out.
Yeah, I think for me, I had a similar experience too, where it was pretty much just the final that made up your grade. And I think, yeah, it was challenging for me, I think, to like have that discipline, especially like being abroad, to be like, okay, like I'm also here for school, like even though, it's cool to have this experience. But yeah, I think definitely like having to like buckle down like at a certain point and just being like, okay, like making sure that like I was reviewing, because I think I was so used to the structure of like being forced to review pretty much like every week through like homeworks or whatever. So it was definitely like something to adjust to. And like it was so funny because I like having these conversations with some of my friends that like are from Europe, and they're like, or literally anywhere else other than America, and they're like, oh, like you have homework and stuff, and like having to like explain that to them. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not used to this at all, of like this one like exam determining my entire grade. And it was interesting too in Singapore. And I'm curious, like at your guys' school too, just like what was the other like local students, like what was their like, were they very like academically focused, or like what was kind of the vibe? Because I know for at NUS it was very much like the exchangers kind of just needed to pass, so it was like that was like a group, but then like the local like Singaporean students were like super like in the books all day every day, like at the I think during like finals week, um the libraries were open 24 hours, and people would like sleep in the cubicles of the library. Like people would bring like a pillow and a blanket, or like I saw someone with like their huge like monitor like set up in the cubicle like at the library. So I just thought that was like such a contrast from like how it is here at USC.
Yeah, I would definitely say Queen Mary had a really big um like study abroad chunk of students. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember it being like 200 to 300 like students every semester would study abroad there. And so there was definitely that chunk where we were like, we're here to study abroad. So like that's study and travel and go places.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual like Queen Mary students, I would say they were pretty academically focused. But honestly, I think because of being in London, most people did a lot of their like studying just around the city. But Queen Mary does have a closed campus, which I thought was really nice because a lot of other London schools, it's kind of like similar to USC in how we're like a closed campus in a city, but a lot of other London schools are like just buildings, really. It's not its own campus. So I really liked that about Queen Mary. So in our library, like I would definitely see people, especially during like finals. But yeah, I think it was honestly a similar environment to USC where I feel like yes, everybody's like academically driven and like cares about school, but then we also like have so many other things that we're involved in on the side, which I noticed like a lot of similarities, which I really liked.
Hi, sorry to interrupt your podcast. Angie here, one of the Viterbi admission counselors. If you are located in the Bay Area in California and are interested in learning even more about our engineering and computer science programs, I will be traveling to the Discover USC Santa Clara event with Rebecca Bider on Saturday, September 21st. Don't forget to register online at viterbi.link/events. That's VITERBI.link/events. Hope to see you there. I'll let you get back to your podcast now.
I'm gonna say take my answer with a grain of salt. So here's my thoughts were Whenever I went to, so we would have for our computer science classes, we would have the weekly labs that were, they said it was required attendance because we'd have to sign in. But I don't think the attendance ever, like they never penalized you for not coming. Um, but we would just have to do the labs. It wouldn't be graded. You wouldn't get checked off. It would just be to experiment with some code or write some new code and then leave for the topic of the week. Um, and there were some other USC computer science students at Sussex because that just happened to be the university that offered enough classes. So a lot of the computer science students ended up there. So I knew some USC people in my CS classes, and we would show up to the labs every week consistently and do our work. We would see no other students there. Like there were barely any local students in the lab. No kidding, lots of times it was just the 4 USC students in the lab and the lab TA, and we didn't see any other local students there. So from that, we don't know what they did. We thought then we were doing well for like showing up and participating and doing our work as exchange students. So I'm gonna say I have no idea how academically focused they were. I definitely met local students in other majors for various way that seemed very academically focused, and like especially the third year students, they're writing their like a thesis or similar to a thesis, so they're definitely doing a lot of work there. But I don't know where the local students were in my classes. So
so funny.
yeah, I'll also say that it's at Sussex. It was also closed campus, but it's just on the outskirts of Brighton, which is the larger town that we're in. And after your first year, students generally go live in the town of Brighton in some like home or apartment. So it like people would often like just come for the school day and then go back home. So in terms of, I would always see people studying in the library a lot, especially during the final assessment periods. But I think it's like less of a motivation to come and stay on campus when they like don't live near campus at all, like at USC, where even if you're living off campus, you're like a couple blocks away.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because I feel like here, like the one class that you really can't skip are the labs. Like those
Exactly.
have to be there.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like we kind of all studied in a different kind of environment. Like London's like a huge city. Brighton is like a smaller town. And then, yeah, I feel like it's definitely not as big as London. And it's kind of more of a, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like you're like, right.
It's a seaside town. It's definitely not like a tiny town in the sense that that's one of the seaside towns that has remained. A lot of tourists come to that town. It's really popular. So it's a pretty big town, but it's still a town. Like you don't see skyscrapers really.
Yeah.
But yeah, a seaside town is I would imagine it like that.
Yeah. And then Singapore is like a huge, like, I feel like Singapore is also like super international. So I was just wondering, how do you feel like the cultural and like backdrop of where you studied abroad kind of influenced your like overall experience, like whether it's like academic or like social, and just how that kind of influenced what your study abroad experience was like?
Yeah, I think culturally, like I mentioned earlier, is still like very diverse in the sense of Asia. And I think like I could probably count on one hand how many like Black students there were at NUS specifically. And like just, that was a common theme for Singapore in general. And I think that's something that I kind of knew going into it, that, there wouldn't be many people who looked like me. And I think that was something that initially I struggled with, especially like, I guess like I did not prepare enough for like my hair products at all.
Yeah.
I had an idea that like, okay, like I'll be able to just like, I guess like order them on Amazon, but like that was a whole other thing, because it's like you have to specifically, I had to like go through like Singapore Amazon, and then it was like obviously like those things also like aren't available. So like that was something that I struggled with, but I think like there was a small community of Black students at NUS, and like some students who like outside of like the exchange program too, who were like local, and kind of having to find that community, I think, was something for me that was important. And like I definitely felt homesick probably like a month into it, and like I had the same experience like coming to USC, and I think it was like it's so exciting at first, and like the whole experience is exciting, but I think it was super like, oh, like I'm in a new place, like whatever. And then after like a month, that's when I feel like it set in for me of like, okay, like I am in a new place, and like, I miss home and like my friends and stuff. But I think in general, I think it really helped me step out of my comfort zone and get to talk to a lot of different people from a lot of different places, and like learn about different cultures. And I think that really like what really like cemented my experience, I think, more than just like being in Singapore, was like the traveling that I got to do, because Singapore is like a huge um like travel hub. So since it's like where it's located, like the airport is like insane, because people like spend like multiple hours there, like during layovers and stuff. Like there's like a mall in there, like there was like a bunch of like there's like a zip lining thing in there. It's like insane. So like yeah, just being in a place where like it's very international and like business driven, I think was interesting. And there also is like a huge biotech and like tech hub there as well. So yeah, I think it really gave me a lot of different perspectives, and also just made me a better engineer in general, in terms of like collaborating and like being able to work with a lot of like different groups of people.
Yeah, I think Queen Mary was also like it was like a really international school. Like there were people in my classes from all over. I remember one girl was like from Luxembourg. There were people from Egypt. So that was really cool to like meet people that were coming from all over the world, but also like had like the same interest as me. And we're all like doing biomedical engineering majors. And we're like to get to see like their perspectives on it was, I thought, like a really cool experience. Irith, what about you? How was Brighton? Because I visited Brighton twice and I loved it.
It's great. I actually miss it like every other day. I look at my photos. I'm like, oh, send me back. I don't want to be in LA anymore. But I would say, okay, I feel like I'm not going to talk as much culturally, just because culturally it wasn't super different from like the US or the rest of the UK, from like what I got to experience. But location wise, I'll say I was one of the people that was like, oh, I want to go to London so bad. But none of the schools in London let us study computer science, because it was just a restricted major there, because it's really popular with their own students. So then Sussex was the only one where I could go if I wanted to be in the UK or Europe at all through the joint tech programs. And it would actually, if I had to choose again, I would totally choose Sussex over any of the other schools, just because location wise, it was so interesting to be in. First of all, not be in the middle of a city, like be right next to downtown LA, which was a huge change from what USC is like. Because Brighton is just a seaside town, so there's like the beach and the pier, lots of quirky little stores, really tiny roads, lots of cute pubs and markets, and really any weird store you can think of was probably in Brighton. And then also the university itself it was just on the outskirts of Brighton, and directly surrounding it was just countryside, because once you go north of Brighton, it's actually all just countryside really until you get closer to London. And that was really awesome, because I could like see cows from my flat and go on walks in the park. And like, I'm not going to go like on a walk on Fig here.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to like walk around, and especially not to depend on having a car, because I don't have a car in LA, to get myself around. Like I would take the bus everywhere. I would take the train everywhere. So it was really nice to just not be in the middle of a city and actually be next to really nothing but me around my university. So I think location wise, that was really a really nice change from being in LA. And also I would still get the city experience, because it was just a 50-minute train ride to London, and the train system is amazing in the UK. So it was really easy to get to. So I went to London lots of times too. So I think it was a very happy medium between you can still get the London city experience, but you just aren't living in London. But you also get like the coastal town experience. And I would, because there's like a train line that runs on the south of England. So we would go to London too, but we would also go to these random, even tinier towns, like random little towns on the coast of England, and just go walk around and explore. And that was something I don't think I would ever get to do, because like, when am I going to go to like a random tiny town in the south of the UK ever? I don't think I would. So it was just, I think it was really cool to get the opportunity to not be in the middle of a city. And it was really different from USC. And I think I definitely miss it. Like, I love USC, and it's really nice to be in the middle of the city and have access to so many things that LA offers. But it was really nice to like have more fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember going to Oxford and like taking like a bus through the country and just seeing like all of like the open green space. And then I also went to visit like the house where they filmed Pride and Prejudice. I think it's like in Derbyshire. I could be butchering that, but yeah, just being like out in the open space and just seeing all of the countryside was really cool. I remember like any train ride I had through England, I was like, my eyes were like glued to my window. And I remember going to Edinburgh too and taking that train. I think it's like a 5-hour train, and just like the landscapes were so gorgeous. So speaking of travel, I'm curious if any of you had a favorite travel destination that you were able to visit during your time abroad.
This is hard. I think probably Vietnam for me. I went to North Vietnam, so I was in Hanoi, and I think that also, like, aside from my experience like being in Tokyo and like being super culture shocked, I think that was probably the second like culture shock experience that was like huge for me, just because there like nothing is written in English. Like, also like no one speaks English, and like at first, like, because I had just went with one other friend, so we were both like, oh my gosh, like we had to like Google Translate to talk to like our Uber driver, and like it was very like, at first I felt very intimidated by it, because I was like, I don't know what any of these signs are saying. Like, I could be like walking into like a danger zone and I have like no idea, or like some like I just didn't know. And like I think that was hard for me. But then looking back, and like I think as the trip went on, I really had an appreciation for the fact that they've kept their culture so intact, and like in the country especially, because I think going to like contrasting that experience to when I went to Bali was super like touristy. Everyone spoke English because that was like, accommodating for the tourists. And I think that's why I appreciated Vietnam so much, because it was like, okay, like we're not going to change who we are. Like, you came to visit our country. And I feel like that was probably like the most enriching experience. And everyone spoke, like, people spoke a little bit of English, but definitely not like enough for a long conversation to be held. But I think that definitely like expanded my experience there. And also just like Hanoi in general, like the food was just amazing. Like, Vietnamese food is probably like
It's good.
top favorite foods for me. And like I would do anything to go back, like literally now, and like eat a bowl of pho, or like I tried I don't know if you guys have heard of bun cha. It's like similar to pho, but it's like these like, they give you like, it's like a soup, and then they give you like these like fried like little dough pieces, and then you like dip it into the soup. Like, it was just so good.
That sounds so
That
good.
sounds amazing.
And like the people were so nice, and like you could also like, I think like meals would be literally like $2, and like it's just the like best experience to like be sitting on the side of the road and like a small like plastic chair like eating, and it just like probably was one of the best meals I've ever had. So yeah, I think that was top for me.
That's awesome. I would say for me, I was able to go to a lot of different places. I would say at the very end, me and my friends, like right after we submitted our final assessments as early as we could. So during our last week of exchange, we could travel. And we went to Prague and the Amalfi Coast. And I think those were both my favorite destinations. Um, Prague was just a really walkable city. We were able to find really cheap accommodation actually right in the center of town. Um, and literally all the other places I'd went to, we were like 40 minutes from the town center because that's where it was really cheap places to live. Um, but it was just really walkable and really pretty. And they just had it's really cool because at these way different from America, where America is just such a new, like historically it's just a new place compared to lots of these old European cities with lots of history. So these like little just grocery stores or random clothing stores would be in such pretty buildings, and every single building had some like historical significance. So that was just really cool just to walk around on these streets and just look at all these different buildings. They had a like a really pretty river, a really pretty castle on a hill. It was just amazing. And then the Amalfi Coast was also really cool because there it's just a bunch of tiny towns on the southern coast of Italy. Um, and they're all gorgeous. And we stayed, there's a couple that are a lot more popular just because I guess a lot more tourists go there. But we stayed in one of the non-touristy places, which was really cool because it's still as pretty as the other ones, but it's less crowded.
Yeah.
And the other really cool thing is because they're all right on the coast, the most common mode of transportation between them is taking a ferry. So they would just have a ferry service like hopping between all these towns. So we would just go town hopping, and that was their like way to see places. And it was just gorgeous. Just all these little beach towns, really good food because Italian food is amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it was really, really nice. And I think it's what I guess is really cool about Europe is lots of the budget airlines have really cheap flights and really good connections. You might be going on a really odd hour, but if you go with just your backpack and have no like carry on or extra luggage, you can get really, really cheap deals. And even though Sussex wasn't near or wasn't in a big city, it was really close to Gatwick Airport, which is just south of London. So it was like a 30-minute train ride to get to the airport, and you can get really good connections from there anywhere in Europe. So I knew exchange students that went to like all kinds of different places all over. So
Yeah, I definitely got very acquainted with all of the different airports around London. There's so many airports. But I would say one of my favorite trips that I went on was to Marrakesh, Morocco, just because it was so different from everywhere else I feel like that I had gone to. And like the landscape was so cool, like being in the desert was just amazing. And we got to do really cool excursions. We rode like ATVs to the desert and then also rode camels and had like a traditional Moroccan dinner. And Moroccan food is so good. I loved, and they always give you like the Moroccan mint tea, and it comes in a really cool, I don't know if there's like a name for it, but like the teapot for it just looks really cool. And they pour it and they like bring it higher and higher and higher above the cup, which was that was really cool and that was really good. And everyone there was super friendly, so I really enjoyed that experience. Okay, so this is probably going to be our last question, but I'm just curious how studying abroad shaped your perspective on your future career goals, like with CS and with like biomedical engineering. Do you think you kind of look at what you want to do in life now a little bit differently than you did before you studied abroad?
yeah, I think okay, in terms of my career goals, I think I they haven't changed drastically since when I got there, but it's kind of just confirmed that the path that I think I want to go on was, I think, the right one because I was able to take all three of the classes I took there were AI or machine learning related, which is what I thought I wanted to do in the future anyway. And I hadn't really gotten a lot of class exposure to that at USC yet. So it's really cool to get to take all these in-depth classes there because there the classes don't have that many prerequisites, so I could just take them. Um, and I think that definitely confirmed that those are the subjects that I like the most. So then I want to pursue that path. So I think it's not changed my career path, but it's definitely like confirmed that that's what I want to do. But I think that's all I got. I think it just like, in my general outlook definitely has changed a lot. Like I think especially going on really any exchange program, you'll meet a lot of other exchange students. So it definitely opened my eyes in a really beautiful way about a lot of things that we think in the US are completely normal standard. Like just the college experience in the US, it's so different in all of these countries. So talking to all of these other exchange students from all over the world about like what their experiences are like and what their daily lives are like was really eye-opening and very much boosted the like my sense of normality in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, very similar in terms of like being able to have conversations with a lot of different types of people. And I think it also like has, expanded upon like, I feel like even though it was an experience, I feel like I learned so much that's not necessarily like, when, in contrast of like being in school and like you like concrete, like you do a test and you're like, okay, I concretely learn these things. But I think just like reflecting on like who I am now, almost like 2 years post study abroad, and I feel like I've just developed so much as a person and being able to, like I said, just like strike up literally a conversation with anyone. And I think I was a lot like in my shell. And I think just like has definitely in terms of like career, I think what I want to do is pretty much the same. Like I definitely still want to go into industry and like work on like medical devices. But I think that now I know and it's like confirmed that I do want to work with people and like just, don't really want to be confined to like my desk and like be more of like independent. I think I thrive on that like human interaction. And also just like yeah, just like getting that human interaction. And also just the fact that like I think saying like leaving this experience and saying that I picked up and like moved to a different, like completely different place in the world and just being able to like exist there, I think like really empowered me as a person. And like now even like for this summer, like this past summer I spent in Rhode Island. So like I got a job offer there for an internship, and then they were like, "Oh, well, you'll have to move to Rhode Island." And I was like, "Okay." Like I went to Singapore. I lived there for a way longer time. Like now I feel like I can just like pick up and like go anywhere. And I feel like that's something that I don't know, scares my family because they're like, no, like they want me to come home. But at the same time, I'm like so much more open to like, working abroad or like traveling for my job. And I think that's something that I'm just like really passionate about and like learned about myself in that experience.
Yeah, I think honestly, pretty much the same answers for me. I realized also how kind of global engineering really is as an industry, and then especially like the medical device industry and just like biomedical engineering in general. Like a lot of major companies have offices everywhere, and it really kind of opened my eyes to like the travel that you can do within the field, which is I hope I'll have opportunities to travel for work because I definitely want to do it again. So yeah, I thought of one quick question. Irith, I know you have class very soon, but I was just curious if you have any like niche things that you think somebody who ends up studying abroad at your same location should do. Like for me, if you go to London and you're a Harry Potter fan, like you need to do the like Warner Bros. Studio tour experience because that was so amazing and I wish I could go back and do that again. So just anything quick that you're like, oh, if someone comes, like they need to do this.
Okay, yeah. I if I can't say this, please cut this out. But if you want to go clubbing in Brighton, go to Revenge, which is gay club in Brighton, right right on the edge of the water. It's so fun. They play the best pop music. If I can't say that, you cut that out.
Okay.
And the other thing is just they have really good like meal deals at any of the local grocery stores. So you can get like a drink, a snack, and a meal for like I forget, it was like £5 or something.
Yeah,
but it's really good. Capitalize on that.
Nice. I think for me, definitely go to a hawker center. So it's like a food court area, and like that's what they're known for in Singapore. But I think something more niche. There's this bike ride that my friends and I would take, and we would just go from like we would ride the train all the way to like the east of the island, and then there were like these like the equivalent of like a city bike that you can just like rent, and then you like go like on this bike trail, and it's I forgot what the name of it is, but it's like pretty big. So like if someone was looking for it, they'd be able to find it. But you literally just ride like around like sunset time, and it's like probably one of the like most gorgeous views, and just getting to see like the scenery of Singapore was just amazing. Because that's a quick thing that I didn't mention, but like Singapore feels so weird because it's an island, but it's also such a like metropolitan area, and they do such a good job of like still making sure there's greenery, because I think they have some initiative where it's like a certain percentage of their buildings have to have like some greenery in it. So I think that like the way they've done that is just so like cool, and it's just such a pretty sight at like sunset time.
That's really cool. Okay, guys, this was such a fun conversation. I feel like I could talk about study abroad forever. Like that's I could have gone for hours. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your semester.
Thanks for having
us on.
Okay.
I love talking about this.
Yeah, I could talk for days.
And we're back. Thank you for that lovely episode, Ava. It was really cool to hear about your experience. It also pulls on my heartstrings a little bit because I was supposed to study abroad in London that semester as well, but 10 days before my flight, my parents said no.
Ouch, I didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's
why'd
okay.
they say no?
My mom said she kept having bad dreams that something was going to happen to me there. So she said no.
Interesting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. At least other kids are doing it.
Yeah. What was in I'm sure, you know, I don't want to retread what everybody just listened to, but when you look back on that experience, what was like the highest of highs? What was the biggest like best memory that you have of studying abroad?
I think for me, I mean, I grew up not really traveling. The first time I left the country was actually for another USC study abroad program where I went to Tokyo for 2 weeks. So I really finally got to explore the world and get to meet people from all over and see what it's like to live in a different place that's not what I'm used to. And I think I was really able to push myself and get outside of my comfort zone. And I was so lucky because I got to travel to so many different countries, because once you're in London and in Europe, the flights are way cheaper and way shorter. So it's easy to just go on a weekend trip. And I think one of my favorite trips that I went on was actually hosted by USC. They did a group for all of the students studying abroad in the UK, and we did a tour of the Scottish Highlands, which was just so cool because it was something that I probably never would have sought out, but getting to do it just showed me that like no matter where you go, there's always something to take from it, and there's always like really cool experiences that you might not even know existed. Like I didn't even really know what the Scottish Highlands were, but I heard it was a popular trip, so I signed up for it, and we got to do a tour with this like company. It's called the Wee Red Bus, and it was with two like Scottish tour guides, and they told us all these cool stories about the little towns that we were going through and like folklore legends, and that was just really memorable because I also got to meet other USC students that I'm still friends with now that I probably never would have met if I didn't have that experience. And so I thought
that's awesome. Cool. Did you get a chance to meet James, who works in the USC office out there?
No, I actually didn't.
Oh, okay. He's a cool guy. I'm going to be seeing him this weekend. But yeah, he runs a lot of the USC programming out there and does some really, really cool things, because we have international offices in a lot of places around the country. James does the London office, and he's just a good guy in general, and always a lovely presence and good to hang out with. Safia, other than your regrets of study abroad, but you've done some traveling though as well, right?
Yeah, my dad grew up in London, so I've been to London before. Where else have I been? I've been to Turkey. I love Turkey. I want to go back. Oh, I actually am going back. I'm going back first week of November, taking a little bit of school off and just going with my sister to Turkey.
Cool.
She's running a marathon there.
Wow.
So we're just taking a little trip. Don't know why.
This is gonna sound like I'm judging, but I'm not. But why? Why run a marathon? First of all, why run a marathon? That's my first question. But why run a marathon in Turkey?
She's a marathon runner. So she ran a marathon in San Francisco over the summer, and she has a charity trip to Turkey. So it's like a comp trip. And she gets to bring a +1, so she's bringing me. So she's already there. So she's like, might as well run a marathon while I'm there too.
Wow. I don't think
Yeah.
that's a sentence that I'll ever say.
I was about to say the same
Me
thing.
Wow.
I was like, I don't think I've ever thought or will think or have, might as well run a marathon while I'm there. I'm like, no, it's like, might as well take a nap. Like that's more
No, that's what
my
I'll be
speed.
doing. I won't even be watching her run. I'll be there at the last 0.2 miles, being like, "Yay, you did it!" And in the meantime, I'll be like eating food, exploring, maybe take a nap because it will take like 4 hours. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. For if she's super fast, it's 4 hours, right? Like,
she did her last one in 4 hours and like 10 minutes,
holy cow.
or like 15 minutes, something
Whoa.
like that.
That's like hardcore.
She's training. She's doing it. She did her half in 2 hours.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine that at all. Um, oh my God. Now I'm completely speechless. I'm like, just the idea of that. So, I mean, you said you're not a runner, Ava, at all.
Oh, no, I did winter track for one semester.
Oh my God. So
Mm.
you are kind of what you
So
did.
I did it I gave it a chance, is what I will say. I did distance because all of my friends were doing distance. And I learned that I was not made to run. I think I max out at 2 miles, and after that, it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore. It's
Yeah.
not my fave.
I just end
met
up hurting myself. Like I can't run to save my
Yeah.
life. I would just end up hurting myself. I end up injuring myself at some point.
I got shin splints, and I was like, I think it's
Yeah.
time to tap out, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I met some of the USC track kids and I was having a conversation with them and they measure time in miles. So suppose they're like, oh, it took him 30 minutes to tell that story. They'll be like, it took him 7 miles to tell that story.
They do that without thinking, or they're joking?
Yeah, like they do it like subconsciously. Like they just throw it into conversation around normies as well.
Around normies. So in their mind, they're tracking the passage of time based on how many miles they would have
I think
run.
so. And also they mean it literally because they tell these stories while they're actually running like 7 miles. So they mean like it took him 7 miles to tell that story.
Oh my God.
I'm saying this as they like can probably hear me because they're my next door neighbors.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, it's been a while since I've seen you, Safia and Ava, and so I'm curious how school is going. We've had a horrible, well, I was not here for it, but last week there was a horrible heat wave, and I'm assuming you guys have survived. Is everything okay?
Yeah, that was honestly very brutal. Walking to class when it's 100 degrees is
I
not
don't
fun.
I
Not
don't
at all.
remember any time where it's ever been like that. I know some people are wondering like, oh, this is normal. I'm like, this is not normal at all.
Yeah, not at all. And
Especially
it
in
just,
September.
yeah, not in September and not for like so many days in a row. I was like, this needs to like end. Like I gotta
Yeah.
go to class. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the power like also went out on my street and the street over
Oh,
multiple
I heard about that.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was not fun because then
The
the
grid
AC
got
goes
maxed out.
Yep. Terrible.
Wow. I heard there was a I don't know. There was there like a partial blackout at the football game too?
Hmm. I think I left before then because we were up by so much that I just left the game.
Yeah, it
But
was
there
a
was
48-0 shutout of Utah
yeah.
State. Was it just
Listen,
it was
when
just
did we
sad
get
to
that
watch?
good? Yeah, a little bit. I feel like everyone lost energy by the half because we were up by like 28-30 by the half, and everyone's like, okay, well, we're probably gonna win. Time to leave.
And it was hot.
It wasn't too bad because it was an evening game. It
Oh,
started
it was
at
a
8
night game.
p.m.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
I don't think
Okay.
anyone would have been there if it was a midday
Yeah, if it
game
was during the day, there would not be the same turnout at all.
because
Got
it was a
it.
packed crowd.
Got it. That's cool. Well, it was the home opener, right?
Mm.
Very cool. Awesome. And this weekend we got a bye, so there's no football games this weekend. What do you guys have planned for this coming weekend?
Um,
What's the one thing you're gonna do? You just said
Wait,
you're
I
gonna try
have
to do one
something, but
thing.
I
true.
forgot
I
what it
want to go on a hike.
Okay,
I
it'll be
wanna go
cooler. It'll be
hiking.
nice.
Where would be nice?
I said it'll be cooler. It'll be
Oh,
nice,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want
definitely.
to like maybe do like Santa Monica Mountains? Like there's some good stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't have a spot, I have a recommendation for you because it's really easy just to start the hikes there and then decide how far and how long you want to go. But if you go up PCH just north of Santa Monica into like just past Will Rogers State Beach. There's a little like turn in right there with like easy parking, and you just start walking up into the little canyon area, and it's beautiful. You can go super high if you want to, but it's also a lot of really easy hikes too, which are really, really awesome.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, I'll
forgetting
check
the
that
name of the
out.
actual turnoff, but it's very easy to get to.
Awesome.
And so I think one of the things about hiking that turns me off is that sometimes they're really hard to get to. Like you got to like go to this obscure place, and that's just a super, super simple one. So that's good. Sophia, you said
I
you had
am
something,
going
but you
to
forgot.
Horror Nights this weekend.
Horror night. Oh, Ava, are you into this? Are you into this
I
scary stuff?
I went last year with my sister and I had so much fun. But honestly, I
Right?
wish it was scarier. Like I would
Why?
I
What
agree.
is
It
fun
have
about
wasn't that
this?
scary. Huh?
What is fun about this?
It's like
I don't
an
know.
adrenaline rush. Like I
Yeah.
love like going through like a haunted house and like feeling like genuinely terrified. Like I want to forget that they're actors. Like I want to be scared, like for real.
Who hurt you?
It's it's just like thrilling. I don't know. It adds such a sense of like that fight or flight kicks in.
Yeah.
Like
It's
it's
That is
also
not.
funny seeing your friends get scared.
yeah, yeah.
So you guys don't get scared.
I think out of the people I typically go with, I'm middle to top of the pack of like least scared. Or like I'll say like I'm the top like I'm like the 75% mark, you know?
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I went with my sister and she like gets scared at anything. And so that was really fun watching her like freak out at like the smallest thing. But for me, Horror Nights is like I need them to like up the level for me.
Oh God. So okay, I have many worries about both of you now. One, you don't feel things, and two, you want to enjoy the pain of others. Is really what I've just heard out of all
Yeah.
of this,
So masochist and sadist.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I didn't feel that. I would like more pain, please. Thank you. I think. God
And the
damn.
theme here is really cool. It's oh my God, why am I blanking on it? It's like who made all the Conjuring movies?
Oh,
Um,
is that the theme? The
Yeah,
Conjuring movies.
oh,
the person who made that. It's like all of their movies.
okay.
So
It's gonna be good.
you all like going to scary movies then?
Yeah.
Only in like group act like I won't watch it on my own,
Yeah.
but I like watching it with my friends.
I think that's exactly how I am. Like I can't do it by myself and I like to do it like in a movie theater just because like the people around you really adds to the experience.
Yeah.
Like when there's
Sure.
a jump scare and like
Yeah.
everyone freaks out, like that makes it so much more fun.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think you're crazy, but I appreciate and I enjoy your your willingness to do stuff. And on Sunday, you guys are all getting together for a retreat too. So I'm sorry I won't be there, but I think this will be the first VSA retreat in 23 years that I have not been at.
This
So
is
I
the first
feel
one I'm going to, so we've just missed
so
each other.
that was the issue. Is Safia's going, so I should probably ditch out on this
Yeah,
one.
I'll take care of it, Paul. Don't worry.
So I'm sorry I can't be there, but I hope that you guys have a great day. I know that I've been talking to Angie, and she has a really, really big day planned for you guys. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a good opportunity to bring together all the new people and really enjoy your day. So it'll be good. And you're getting Chipotle. So, there's that. So everybody seems to love the Chipotle. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us. Ava, sorry, I said Ava. And Safi, it's good to see you again. For all of you out there listening, thank you so much. Hopefully you're working on your Common App. It's due November 1st. If you'd like to be considered for merit-based scholarships, make sure you apply by November 1st and select the early action option on the application inside the Common App. We are still traveling, as that's why I won't be at a lot of these places, and there's lots of different events that are still coming up around the country and around the world. As I mentioned, when this goes up on Sunday, I will actually be in London at that time. And so we're recording this ahead of time. And Hawaii and Honolulu would have happened the day before. And then the following week after that, we have events in the Bay Area, in Santa Clara, and also in Seattle. Then we move on to, what do we got? We got a little bit of a week off because we're doing some other professional elements. And then Boston and New York, if you're out in the East Coast, Boston and New York, October 4th through 6th, I will be there. Lisa from our staff will be in Chicago. And then we've got another East Coast swing the week after that with Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. Oh, the cool part is that Washington, D.C. is going to be in the brand new USC campus in D.C. because we have our new campus that's out there. And so it'll be an opportunity for students and families to explore that building, which is what I heard is a really, really cool space. So DC and Philly next the weekend after that, which is October 12th and 13th. And then also South Florida and Atlanta will also be going on. Andrew will be in DC and Philly, and Brooke will be in Florida and Atlanta. And then we wrap up with our big open house, which will be Sunday, October 20th. And so Sunday, October 20th, if you would like to visit campus, it's a great day to come check it out with our large open house, Discover USC. And as part of Discover USC, we'll be holding the Viterbi Expo, where we'll have specific Viterbi sessions, faculty presentations and spotlight sessions, student organizations, design teams, makerspace opportunities, all sorts of things. It'll be a fun, big day. And of course, the highlight of the entire day is the Viterbi photo booth, because everybody loves the photo booth. So with that said, come check us out, viterbiadmission.usc.edu/events, or viterbi.link/events is an easier one to get to, viterbi.link/events. And with that, we will see you all next week with another episode of Viterbi Voices. Thanks all. Bye-bye.